Hey everyone, welcome back to Be Not Afraid. I am doing this one also cross posting with Moms for America, but I felt that it was really important that we begin to have these conversations, difficult conversations about immigration from a place, I hope, of compassion. So I wanted to bring on some friends of mine who are naturalized citizens and let them talk about their stories of immigration, what their um, how they feel about this country, and just what it was like to leave and to come here, and honestly what fears they see in the future. And I couldn't think of anyone more perfect than my guest today, who is Filimon Rezene. Um, and if I pronounce that wrong, I'll have him correct that. So let me just bring him on. Hi, how are you? You're muted. Just a second. Let me or ask. Should be
Yeah,
good
can you hear
now.
me now?
I can, yes. I'm so glad to see you again.
Glad to see you too. Thank you for having me again.
So I really want to have the conversation that people aren't willing to have, you know? A lot of times people say, "Oh, these topics, they're off limits." And I think that that is the most concerning and the most manipulative thing that can happen is to tell people there are certain things that can't be talked about, especially when those things are so important as immigration and who should come, if that's even a thing. Are there people who should just simply not be allowed to immigrate? Um, are cultures always compatible? I, I just want to hear your story, and I know you and I've talked before, but I have a lot more new followers, so I just want to let you talk.
Thank you for having me again, Carrie. I always appreciate your struggle, your love for this country. And I'm really proud of you and other people, moms for America, who are fighting for this country to defend. I I'm so proud of you because that's our last hold. America is our last hold to defend our Western civilization, Christianity, our faith, our Judeo-Christian value. That's our last hold because we've been defeated everywhere in the world, in Middle East, East Africa, Horn Africa. All this was the foundation of the Christian faith, and it's being completed, decimated and being controlled, and every day, every morning Christians being persecuted, being killed, and no voice for them. So this is the last hold that we have. And so I'm so proud of you and the other people who understand this and like standing for this, I would say a holy fight, like as they said, so holy war, it's defending. This is our last hold, and if we've been defeated here, we're done. As 2,000 years of faith, 2,000 years of civilization will be ended, so you may think it's like easy, like because we're you may think it's like, oh, I'm just broadcasting, or I'm just talking, I'm just writing articles, doing research, whatever. I'm not really fighting real war, but it's for our enemy. It's a war. You already have heard all these medias. It's already a war for our enemy. The Islamic imperialism has been for 1400 years killing people, whether which they call them non-believers, Christians, Jewish, and to see America is being, like overwhelmed by this kind of evil ideology is so sad for me, because I fled from that kind of situation, and I was thinking that this would America would be my safe haven. America would be a country where I will speak freely and live freely with no fear of persecution, or fear of not practicing faith. But this is not the reality that I am facing now. But I will do my best as a naturalized citizen, and I believe. and for the sake of my value and for the sake of the faith that I've been practicing for thousands of years. Since my grandfather's Christianity was never being about race, never being about white or black. It's about values, and it will never be, defeated because it's from the God, the universal God, the Creator. But we have to do as followers what we have to do to defend it, to practice it. If we don't practice it, if we don't defend it, if we don't live it, then like any other religion and like any other faith or civilization, like we're in a verge of really, really, we have really this threat, especially Islam, because many people come to America as immigrants from the day one, but they've been assimilated to the American values, to the American culture, to the American faith, and they actually become really American. The only faith or the only people that they cannot be assimilated is Islam because they want to dominate, they want to impose. Islam is an imperialistic ideology. It's not some phase, it's like it's a political mixed with phase ideology. That's the main reason that they have allied themselves with the far left, because the far left are globalist. They are not nationalists. They are not like believe in sovereignty or nationhood. They believe in globalism.
I just
They
wanna
glue.
repeat that because I think some people might there may be a a strong accent. So what you said is that they don't believe in sovereignty. You don't believe in they don't believe
Mhm.
in sovereignty and they're globalists. Now, one of my
Yeah, they don't
questions
believe in
there
nationhood.
right, and one of my
Mhm.
questions there, because um I see an awful lot of Christian churches adopting these same ideas. They also believe zero borders. They believe globalism, and their belief on that tends to be that that is how you reach the whole world with their religion mixed with politics, which is, things like United Nations or the human rights campaign. And that's been
Mhm.
so interesting to see the human rights campaign align or Islam align with the human rights campaign when fundamentally, what do they have in common? Why are groups like radical Islam, because I do
Mhm.
think it's important. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've been able to speak to people who um, support Islamic reform and would like to see some of the things that they believe as Muslims be respected without the radical. Is that a possibility?
Well, like first of all, there are two things. The reason that the radical Islam is actually making alliance with the far left is there are two main reasons that they ally themselves, because one of the main reasons their hate of our religion, their hate of our Christian faith, that gives them like a common idea, like a common goal. And the second one is their globalist viewpoint of humanity. They want uh, the far left. They want every people. They don't believe in sovereignty. They don't believe in nationhood. They believe in one global world. They don't believe. That's why they want zero border. They have to dehumanize your religion. So, and the radical Islam, they want the same thing, but they won't replace it. They won't make the globe Islam, the whole world. They want America an Islamic country. They want the whole world to be Islam. So it's a little bit different, but on that's the main reasons that they ally themselves.
So their
And
partnership, I mean, are they
yeah.
playing like a game of chicken kind of, where they're trying to decide, well, one or the other of us is going to win. We're going to partner now because we hate Christianity. Um,
Hmm.
and then after that, we'll deal with each other. Is that kind of the idea that's going on?
Well, it will. This the way it will end is Islam is brutal for 1,400. As where I came from, I'm originally from Eritrea, a majority Christian country. We've been fighting Islam for 1,300 years, and we're not far from Mecca, Medina, where the epic center of Islam. We only 300 miles. America is so far away from the epic center of Islam, or the source of Islam, which is Mecca, Medina, the Middle East. But we are on the Red Sea, we are like only 300 miles. And we've been fighting Islam for 1,400 years, and we defeated Islam, even though they killed our grandfathers, they raped our women. Even our women, they had to make a tattoo of the cross in solidarity of with their men, because they killed the men and they married, and they make offspring of the woman. And they what they did is, like, historically, as our grandfathers told us, is like they made a cross. The woman made a cross because the Islam are fanatics and radicals, and they think if they have the cross, they been already Christian, being so much Christian that they will not sleep with them, or they will not have offspring with them. So Islam strategy is one way. There is no any other options. Take over their land, kill their men, rape their women, take over their land, and Islamize them. If you accept Islam, they make Islam and put it under Sharia law. But if you don't accept, you have two choices: either you get killed or pay taxes. So basically, being a slave of Islam. And that's actually one of the they feel that kind of supremacy, the superiority over other people, over other nations, over other civilizations and values. And that's why, when they come here, they cannot assimilate. They just create their own territory, like Dearborn, Michigan, like Minnesota. In Texas, also, they have some local neighborhood. They can assimilate. Even it's not about being religious, by the way, because if you see Indian believe in Hindu, which are different from Christian faith, they assimilated. If you see Judaism is part of they assimilate. Everyone assimilate except Islam, because in their religion they see Christians and Jewish as pigs and monkeys. They don't see you,
Pigs
me
and
and you,
what?
monkeys,
Monkeys.
because they don't see you as a human. They don't see me, they don't see you as a human. There are people that I know personally, over 49 people being beheaded in Libya in 2015. Do any Americans know about that? No. If they knew about this story, if the history of Islam, and even the recent history, forget about 500, 1,000 years ago.
I mean, just a couple of months ago, there was a church that
Like, can you
they
hear?
came in and they beheaded a bunch of people, and I saw them wrapped up in tents laid out on the ground, and no media was covering it. They've only
No, because even myself, I was telling you about my story, how I came to America. I was kidnapped by Islamists in Sinai, Egypt, and I had to pay ransom. I saw with my own eyes that there are this radical Islam were raping our sisters, because they don't consider you human. They consider you as pigs, monkeys, being created for their enjoyment, or for their to serve them. There is slavery that's happening in most of Islamic country, which nobody covers it, which nobody even knows it exists.
Why? Why do you think? Because I mean, there's so much alternative media, right? I mean, I
Hmm.
I sit there and I the people that I watch, I'm like, why are you not talking about this? Why do these people with much larger platforms than me, why are they not having these conversations when it's very clear? Lost you for a moment there. Can you still hear me? I think you're coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, why, when it is so clear in all of these quote unquote freedom fighters, why won't they talk about it? And I'll just tell you in full transparency, there was a person I interviewed a friend of yours, and there was a person who got on that was definitely an apologist for what's going on in Eritrea and said none of this true. The dictator is a very good man. He's very benevolent and all of these things. And I'm sure you probably hear this on a regular basis. I'm sure that what you do is probably somewhat dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, look, in Eritrea, for example, we have this communist dictator who went in China, who studied communism and socialism under Mao himself. And he imported that ideology, and he brutally killed our people. Not only he banned our faith, our Christian, even though we are majority Christian, we banned he banned the Bible book, and now he's supporting the Muslim Brotherhood in Sudan, and he supported the Houthi terrorist group. Do you know the Houthi that they shoot missiles against American ships, European ships,
They're the kind
Israelis,
of the modern day pirates, right?
the kind of model, and with a very sophisticated weapon, and they're with a very radical ideology of Islam. They have like on their flag, they have this saying "Death to America, death to Israel," and so basically he's supporting them. He's not actually Muslim, he's Christian, just like the far left in here. He's Christian himself, but he's supporting the most radical Islam against the wills and history of the our population. And
So,
what they do is
how
they try to.
go ahead, keep going.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
So what they are, when you speak out like me or people who are telling the truth, they have to dehumanize you, or they have to make you that you are radical, even though you are fighting against radicals. It's really weird, like I'm speaking against a radical group who want to exterminate people for just being believing in a different religion or just being different from them. And I'm not radical, I'm fighting against radical. And a lot of people like me are fighting against radical, but what they are trying to do, they're trying to make you are more radical than the actual radical people,
Right, like
because
those
you are speaking the
extremist
truth.
terms.
I'm telling my story. I'm telling how I came to be American, why the reason why I ran away, and how I was being kidnapped by Islamists. I'm telling the real story. It's not a story that I am reading in a book or something. It's my real life story. And they have to intimidate you. They have to make you scared. Oh, if you speak that, we will endanger your life. I've been already through this. There's no reason for me to fear in the land in the land of freedom and liberty. That's the reason I ran away and got asylum in America. Like I came here to speak freely. There's no way that I have to be afraid of anyone. And I have to tell the truth, because at the end of the day, the truth will set us everyone free, and if we don't protect our faith, if we don't protect people who believe in the same faith, especially Christians, and what's our responsibility? How can we say that we serve God? Jesus, all this Christian ideology was about the people who are persecuted, who are marginalized, who are, uh, like being treated by the overall majority as
You might say
underdog.
oppressed. Uh-huh.
Yeah, oppressed. And that's our foundation of the foundation of our faith, and we have to stand with every American who believes in this ideology. If he or her saying that I'm Christian, has to stand, and we need to return to our brotherhood, because you never, like the main reason that we're like kind of not defending our religion is we lost our brotherhood. They divide us. They divide us. They undermine our religion. They dehumanize our religion as backward. No, it's not backward. We're fighting a religion of Islam that's way backward, 1400 years backward.
So
Christianity has been evolved so much. It includes almost every race, every people in background. It includes to himself. It embraces it. It's already matured.
it's a
It,
brotherhood of man.
it's a brotherhood of man, but we have to defend it. If we don't
Right.
have defend it, then other will replace it, and Islam for sure will replace it.
So I'm
Because
interested. I'm sorry. I'm interested
go ahead.
in specifically because you said that the dictator of Eritrea is actually a Christian. So where is it? Because I see the same thing in America constantly of Christians adopting these ideas that are they're unbiblical, and they're taking pieces and saying, oh, because of this, because Christ as a baby went to Egypt, that means we should never have borders. But when I look at Christ as a baby being taken to Egypt, his father had a skill. His earthly
Mhm.
father had a skill, and he worked. And that's very different than opening up the doors and saying everyone should just come. So where is it that Christians are slipping and going, yeah, I'm going to adopt socialism, which is ultimately a step away from Marxism. I'm going to adopt these ideas because that's the way Christ would be. Is that what your dictator was doing? Is he, I hate to use this word, I'll probably get myself in trouble, but is he a useful idiot? Or does he use religion to manipulate the people? And is it really just about greed and power?
Well, the main reason is power, but the second reason is he has this an ideology, socialism or communism, which has been failed everywhere in the world. It's been failed in China, it's been failed in Soviet Union, it's been failed in Venezuela or Cuba, right? So he's one of the few dictators or communist dictators who are remained alive. So he actually he made Eritrea, the country, a failed economy. There's no economy, there's no any development. It's a failed country under his leadership. So what he has to do is he has to align making alliance with Islamic radicals because of their common hate against West, and their common hate against capitalism, and their common narration hate against the Christian faith. And that's kind of making alliance. And he's supporting Muslim Brotherhood in Sudan. You probably heard that there are millions of people being persecuted in Sudan. And actually, one of the actors behind that is the Eritrean, who himself is so-called Christian, but arming and supporting an Islamic Brotherhood in Sudan. And by the way, Muslim Brotherhood has been banned as a terrorist organization in Egypt, in Muslim countries, in Egypt, in Emirat, in United Emirates State, in a lot of Islamic countries, because they create a lot of chaos. They look like they speak a lot about humanitarian, they speak a lot about democracy. Their strategy is very unique because they use the strategy of deception. When
Mm.
you look them from outside, they look like they are much reformed Muslim, but they are actually worse radical Islam because they use the art of deception. And
Now,
that's
I
the main reason in America, actually, they got almost controlling all our education system, our universities, and they got a lot of money being funded by the Qatari. And if
right.
you know Al Jazeera, the most popular Muslim Brotherhood TV, they never report any
Can you
incident.
repeat that? So Al Jazeera is the most popular Muslim Brotherhood
Yeah,
television.
it's been owned. It's been funded by Qatari, which is the same funder of the Muslim Brotherhood in American University, in American City, in American, all these new elected politician Muslims. It's
I just
been
want to be really clear about that for anybody who's watching, that Al Jazeera has been used in our local classrooms. So our
Mhm.
students are watching that as if it is reputable and safe media, and it's the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say one thing about the Muslim Brotherhood, because they came to Seattle, Washington 20 years ago, and they were speaking, and I would say they were being quite vitriolic. And me being me, I walked up to this group of people that were speaking at Westlake Mall, and I told them what I thought, and that, you know, basically hate has no place here. This is really sad. And one of the things they said is, we will not rest until the blood of white men fills the streets. So I've known that this particular group of people, now the Muslim Brotherhood is not all people who practice Islam, correct?
No, they actually look like very secular,
Like what?
very like
Very
very
secular.
secular,
Okay.
secular people who not like like a more liberal. They look like liberal. Like I want to give you this example. When I lived in Israel, an Al Jazeera reporter came to Israel and asked me to do a documentary film about African refugee being treated badly by Israeli government. And when I told them, okay, I would like to do the documentary story, but I want to tell my whole story, and I want to tell how the Islamists kidnapped me in Sinai and paid ransom money, and they say, no, we don't want that. We only want what happened in Israel. So what I'm trying to say here is, like, they kind of selective report. They are very selective reporter. They wanna report to me as partial truth, not my whole story, because that will affect the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. If I've been reported I was kidnapped by Islamists in Sinai, and that would offend their funders, which is the Qatari, or their will like contradict their ideology. So this Al Jazeera itself. So what I'm trying to say is, they always report a humanitarian crisis, people who's been persecuted, but they don't report the whole story. They, because of their ideology and because of their funder. The Qatari is the owner of that, which funding all the Muslim Brotherhood in America, which funds most of these politicians that's been elected in America, has been funded by directly or indirectly by Qatari, and
And
that's
our
why
schools,
we will
our
in our
education.
school we will have more Muslim politicians being elected in the future, because now they know that it worked in America. Mamdani being elected in the most rich city, most liberal city in America, they will find much more money will be flowing to America.
Why do you think that happened? Why do you think that people who said never forget, who post pictures and images of 9/11 on a regular basis? Now, I do understand what people believe happened on 9/11, and a lot of people don't believe that it had anything to do with Muslims. But how why did they elect Mondani?
Well, it's like we were talking about how the enemy in here in America is their own citizen, their own faith, their own value. Like before, even in 9/11, when 9/11 happened, and before 9/11, America has some unity or some common understanding of the consensus on the values of America. But in recent years, our values differentiate. A lot of radical far left believes that America is the enemy of the world.
Right.
America is the enemy of humanity. America is this evil, or Christianity is the enemy of humanity. But like, this is wrong, because look, all this Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Palestine, wherever, Jordan, Syria, all this used to be a Christian nation.
Yeah.
They used to be a whole Christian nation, and they are not anymore. They've been, and not because they've been converted through preaching, peaceful preaching. No, it's through war, killing. Even in Egypt, there are 10 million Christians right now. They've been persecuted every day. They've been killed every day in their church,
Right. Including children.
including children. There are women being raped publicly in front of the church. In
And then
front
if
of
the
the church.
women, this one gave me nightmares because I learned about a group where if women are too old to be slaves, to be sex slaves, um, some of them are being buried alive. Is that true?
Well, if you are not a Muslim, they will do anything, because, like I was telling you, they don't consider it man. They consider it as pigs and monkey. So if I kill monkey, do you feel bad? No. That's how they think. We need to understand the ideology, because the ideology shapes how they think. And wherever brutal things happens in the Middle East or in Islamic country, I believe it, because it's true. It could easily be, because it actually, they always say it. If a lot of, all these imam, or like the religious leaders, they tell you, there are the Salafis, like ISIS and Al Shabaab, or Al Qaeda. All these are brutally honest. They tell you what they do. They tell you what they believe.
And
That
people
makes,
always come to their defense. They always
yeah.
say, "Well,
And
that's just one person. That's not that they're not speaking for all of us. That's just one person." But
where
I'm like, "How come it's so many one people?"
most of the Muslims in the West, they don't condemn them, because they don't even speak against them. The reason they don't do that is because they believe in that.
So
Not
that's an
only they
interesting.
believe in that, they actually expecting it to happen, because they have this prophecy: one day Islam Caliphate will come and rule the world and make every one of us as Muslim.
So that's an interesting tactic because a couple of months ago when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, right? Um the left refused to say his name. And to me, that was like, to use their kind of language, a dog whistle,
Hmm.
that we have decided we will not allow this person to exist. We intentionally will not say their name. These are the same people who did a say their name campaign, but they will have conversations. And these are people who would consider themselves the arbiters of kindness. They are the people who are telling us all, controlling our speech. I don't know if that's something that you experienced in Eritrea, but in America, they're talking about how can they control speech under the name of kindness. And again, I wonder how much of this is coming from that Qatar um, education. Because another thing that I've seen are pictures of Islamic people, and it says, "We are the religion of peace," or the religion of love. And so a lot of people think that that's what the language means. But I just heard a mayor of some town in Minnesota, right? Or maybe Dearborn. I think it might be Dearborn,
Hmm.
who said it's just law. Sharia just means law. Why would anybody be afraid of law? And I'm thinking the law of laws is something we should be concerned about because that's extreme authoritarianism.
Hmm.
So I want to go backwards. I Like I said, we've spoken before, but this is going up on another channel as well, and there'll be people who haven't heard your story. I want to hear the story that Al Jazeera wouldn't allow you to say.
Where they never allowed me to say, or which I actually refused to do the documentary because I didn't want to tell a partial story of my experiences. I want to tell the full story because and they say, oh, if you're not only doing the documentary what happened to African refugee inside Israel, not in Sinai, not on the road to Israel, not in Egypt, not in Sudan, and I refused to do that, and I don't want to do that. And what happened on the way for me is I was, I had in Eritrea there is no there is no free media, there is only one communist state media, there is no internet literally, because the government blocked the whole internet to control you from being exposed to new information, to new ideas, and always the narration being controlled by the state. It always the narration is anti-Western, anti-American, anti-Zionism, anti-Christianity, anti. So and also trying to, like, present Islam as more peaceful, as that's why we were naive. Before I came out from my country, I thought Islam was a religion of peace, because in Eritrea they are minority, and when they are minority, most of Islam, when they are minority, they are very peaceful. They are
Hear
very
that.
peaceful people.
Everyone, please listen.
Yeah.
When
and I and the
I want to just
media.
repeat that. When they're minorities, they're
Hmm.
very peaceful.
Yeah.
Very, very peaceful. Go ahead.
And that's why I was very naive. Not only me, but every my people from Eritrea were naive, and we didn't have any information about Islam. The day that we went in, we ran away from the country, from a communist dictator, from a dictatorship, treated people. We're not allowed to get out of the country from the age of 18 to 60. You are under military service in the name of national service, but it's like literally a modern human slavery system. And we ran away from that really, really bad situation. And when we got into Sudan, Egypt, Libya, and we've been treated like as much worse than we were treated under the communist rule, because we were Christian, and we were naive. We didn't have any information how, even though our we have a long history of fighting Islam, that narration or that history, our past history, being completely erased from the school system. So we were not taught how our grandfathers fought Islam in the Red Sea, in against Ottoman Empire, along the side of Portuguese. All this amazing history that we fought against Islam to defend our faith and to defend our nationhood, being erased from the school system. So we were very naive, and then we've been kidnapped and we've been treated like not a slave, and we were shocked, and we were
What
very
does that
shocked.
mean? I mean, so when Americans think of slaves, they think of not even given clothes, chained up. They're really thinking of like the 1700s, um, and in the 1800s. That's what they're thinking of. So like Harriet Tubman, right? What does it mean to be treated as a slave? Like very specifically, what does that look like?
So the time that I was kidnapped, everyone was under chain. Even though we had clothes, our own clothes. Even if you don't have any other clothes, then, and until you get paid the ransom money, 10,000, 40,000, it depends, 3,000, 4,000, you are in chain. You're allowed to eat a little bit food because you have to pay the ransom. If you're dead, you're no use, you're you're not be useful. So they have to keep you, feed you to stay alive, not really to get full, but to stay alive. And if you are unable to pay the ransom money, actually there are almost hundreds of people being organ trafficked. They actually do literally a surgery without any anesthesia, or without any sophisticated equipment. They took their organs and sell it to Egypt, in Egypt, to different countries. They sell it. And that way, that's how be useful. That's why they want to keep you alive. They don't want to, like really kill you. And but they have to torture you. They use fire to torture you. They use electric shock to torture you. Especially if you are unable to pay the money, it will be the worst experiences. It would be I don't know. It could similar slavery system. I don't know a lot of history about slavery in America, like detailed or pictures of that slavery, but it could be it could be very similar.
Are
It's
you
not
allowed to
like
talk?
huh.
Are you allowed to talk? Like, can you talk to the people that you're chained up with?
Yeah, but you all are in pain, like
Oh,
you
jeez.
are all in pain. You have nothing to talk about. You just praying so that God will save you, and like, and for me, I was lucky that I was not killed, I was not dead. And because the Israeli army was on the border and they saved me, I was one of these lucky people that have been saved by the Israeli Defense Force, and I was given asylum in Israel. And there are 40,000 Christians and black like me who lives in Israel being given asylum, being allowed to work. I'm not saying it's a perfect place. There is a discrimination everywhere. Like there is, which I was also protesting. There's democracy that I could protest on that. If there is a
Right.
discrimination or wrong an immigration policy that treats us differently, then I did protest. That's why, just like in America, it's very similar. If a policy that I don't like, I can speak out, right?
Mhm.
But under that chain, under that slavery treatment, forget about speaking out. Forget about. I'm just the only person that I was able or I was allowed to speak to is the Jesus Christ or God. That's the only person. You just speak up, not to, because you know how they treat you, and you know who these people are evil, and you know who these people. You already know that these people are wanna kill you, and they hate you for who you are, for what you believe, and there's no reason for you to speak to these people. Maybe you pray to God, and God will visit you and save you, and He did. God actually visited us, and He saved a lot of us, even though a lot of us were killed and being organ harvested, being treated, like having all this psychological trauma, living with the trauma, with the rape, and everything. But still, God visited us, saved 40,000 of us, and took us to a safe haven in Israel. And so, what I'm saying is like, this is my story, I suffered under communism, under a communist dictator for, like this many years. And then I was naive that the neighboring country or the people neighboring to us, I didn't know about them. I didn't know who they are. I didn't know about until I experienced it myself, until I went through this hell. And when I went through the hell, I understood what Islam is. And I started even to study my own history, my grandfather's history, and what Islam is, what Western civilization is, what's the differences, between Christianity and Islam. I studied it well, and I understood perfectly the reason why I went through that way. And that's the reason that I want to speak out, that I won't tell people who never been through that experience, but who might be in the future, that I have to warn them. This is my story. And if we are not really understanding what's happening, or who this ideology is, or who these people believes in that ideology, if you do not understand them, then if you don't learn from history, then you repeat the history, and which you will pay a heavy price for that, and it will be painful. It will not like an easy experience. The reason I am speaking is because I survived it, but there is also a chance that you will not be surviving.
Right.
because there are a lot of people just like us, human being, believes in this faith in Christianity, who paid their life, and they nobody even to remember them, nobody even to speak about them, been completely forgotten. So what I'm saying is, we need to return our Christian brotherhood, and not based on our race, not based on background. If we believe in the idea of Judeo-Christian values, on the idea of Christianity, then we need to bring our brotherhood, because that's the main reason that Christianity actually expanded all over Europe. Their brotherhood is not their wellness. Forget your class, forget your background, forget your race. You need this brotherhood, and we need to fight Islam wherever it is. If we say, oh, only we will fight when it comes to my home, it will be too late, you know?
Right.
We need to, if it's in Dearborn, we have to go and fight there. If it's in Eritrea, then we have to go and fight there, because we will save our homes, we will save our city, we will save our neighborhood, we will save our state, we will save as a whole as our country, America. We have to fight wherever it is, because we don't understand this, because we are too late. That's why now we are fighting on the doors, on the footsteps of our door. It's already in here.
Yeah, I
And
would say
yeah.
it's already stepped into our homes. So, what's interesting to me, because a lot of people will say, a lot of people will turn off and say, "Oh, this is all about Christians." But I think the key there is the idea of Christianity. The
Mm-hmm.
idea that we can unite under the brotherhood of man without necessarily, because I do believe that Mm, Ronald Reagan had this thing where he talked about if people agree with you 80%. Well, if the 20% is you can't wrap your head around the same Jesus that I believe in, but everything else you believe, like you believe, our founding fathers agreed. The people who came over on the Mayflower, they signed a compact. They agreed to behave as if the gospel were true. And that, I think, is how you can get Hindu people and Sikh people and all of these different groups to agree that this is a better idea than people who actually think that we are pigs or monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there has to be, even if that's our common ground, is just that we agree that that's a better idea. We
Mm-hmm.
agree that perhaps we shouldn't, you know, behead or bury older women alive because that's what's going on. We
Mm-hmm.
agree that that should never happen. But one thing, and again, if anybody wants to, our last conversation is called "No Longer a Slave" and that's in my files. But I think it's important to understand where you came from, where you started. You were already completely embroiled in a communist country.
Mm-hmm.
And when we spoke before, you were saying so many things that we as Americans go, "Whoa, this is coming to our schools." And you're like, "Well, that's what I've always been taught."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I want to just address some of the things that you were taught growing up that we're now seeing in America. Can you kind of go all the way back to that?
Yeah. In Eritrea, the communist dictator, they actually controlled every sector, like the education system. The curriculum is being controlled by the state. And they don't teach you the real history, but they teach you about the hate, to hate even your families, because they teach you like, oh, your families are backward, they believe it on this, on the religious fanatics, they don't believe. And they kind of teach you like, in the real enemy is not really actually, um mm, The real enemy, what they teach you is like your tradition, your grandfather, your history, and they don't really teach you the real story of the world. They teach you people are actually categorized. They define you as a lower class and upper class. Your real enemy is the upper class, not the lower class. Every lower class or poor are the same. But like Eritrea and Somalia, kind of neighbors, and we look like the same. Maybe a lot of people may think I'm Somali, but I'm not. I'm Eritrean, but I look like Somali because we're on the same geographical location where we might look like each other, but our idea is completely different. If a Somali terrorist, Al Shabaab, find me, and if he finds another white Muslim, he kills me and he lets him live because of Islam gives brotherhood with. So what I'm saying is like in the whole world, the people are not categorized with classes. They actually being categorized or defined by their character, by the values they believe in, and values usually came from religion. This is like fact. Like we can say an American values, but where are they? Are they founded on Hindu, Islam, or Confucius? It's founded in the Judeo-Christian valley, right? On Judaism and Christianity. Maybe a little bit of Greece, right? Or Roman. But if you go to Islam, it's founded in the Arab countries, it's founded in Islam. If you go to Somalia, it's founded in Islam. If you go to Sudan, it's founded in Islam. If you go to India, then it's founded in Hindu, right? So this is like fact, but they don't teach you facts. They teach you propaganda. They want to brainwash you. They won't brainwash you so that they want to convince you their ideology is actually the only way for you to live. It's not whether it's factual, whether it's logical or pragmatic, it doesn't matter. They want to brainwash you. And whoever tries to brainwash you usually hides facts from you,
Yes.
and you're not fully free. If you really want to be free, like just the freedom that we have in America, you have to think critically and you have to get all the information. There's no reason that anybody or any people in position of power to keep you from being exposed to new information. If their idea or their ideology is fact, you're gonna believe it anyway, so they don't have to get worried. But these people are their ideology is shit. They just base it on blah blah, and they wanna brainwash you, and that's why even they use it to translate American books from far left American books, and they teach us on our school system. And the reason they translated all these books from far left American writers is because they want to convince even American hate America. That was
Mhm.
actually very interesting to me, especially being not having internet, being not exposed to different information, being not exposed to different authors and writers. Well, if Americans hate America, then maybe they are right. America is evil. That's actually how I was thinking before I came to America. Then when I came to America and when I see these writers, their books being translated, actually being selected to be translated. And now I've been exposed to different writers, different economics like Thomas Sowell, a lot of writers being exposed. And there's a lot of actually uh, ideas, different viewpoints, different opinions in America. It's not like a one picture that
It's
was given
diverse.
to us.
It's
So,
diverse, but people are pushing against that diversity, the diversity of thought, the even I mean, we are supposed to be an independent people who come together,
mhm.
but we're being taught not to be. So
That's true.
that's what I mean. Like, so what you were taught, it's like my new favorite word. It's called oikophobia, and that means that people are taught to hate their homeland.
Mm-hmm.
So you were taught that Americans have just fully embraced that idea that we all hate our homeland.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I wanted to get across to people is that look, you in your I mean, are you still in your 20s?
Well, I'm 39 now.
Oh, I would I would never believe that.
37
Okay.
actually.
Okay, but even that makes my point even stronger because you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to me about what you learned in school.
Mm-hmm.
So how many years have you been taught even before we knew, even before it was on our radar that we're supposed to hate our country? You were already taught that we did.
Yeah, you've been already taught to hate the country. That's why all these, all these writers, all these media people, they they okay, in Eritrea they kind of blocked the other narration. If there is independent media, they blocked it. It's a communist dictator, they blocked it, or they put you in a prison, right? In America, they kind of have this strategy of dominating the narration,
Mhm.
dominating the media. So that's why, people who have a different idea or a different argument will never be heard, or will be isolated, or will be dehumanized, will be like treated as fanatics or radicals, like.
Right.
So it's using the strategy of media monopoly and narration monopoly. That's actually how it's been done in America, which is different from what I experienced. That's why we have a little bit of opportunity to fight back, even though what we're speaking now about is, even though it's not allowed to be broadcast in a big media, but we have an opportunity of the using social media and internet to reach to a wider audience, like a wider community in America. And we have an opportunity to fight back because they are not fully dictator, but through the media monopoly, through censorship, through the media narration monopoly, they kind of controlled it. It,
Right.
we we have to do what we have to do to get our.
So you're frozen. Um we'll see if you come back on again. My big question here is what can we do as somebody who started off where this was your society, where we're headed up, you may be gone. So I guess I'll just ask that to those of you watching. If his society is one where they were already in the place that we're currently headed, what can we do as little tiny voices? I've got um half a dozen people watching right now. So, but what can our little drops in the water do that will actually be effective in pushing back against these things? And to me, it comes down to what this channel is all about, which is, I think he's coming back, but I'm not sure. Being not afraid. You have to say the things that other people say it's taboo to talk about. That's the thing that we have to do if we're going to even have a fighting chance. So I'm going to just open it up and see if any of you guys have any thoughts on what we can do. And I would love to know, did you know anything about Eritrea? Can you even point it out on the map? Um, what do you think our what is our solution here? Um, I think it's very interesting that people in third world countries have been taught that we as Americans have hated ourselves, and they've been taught this for over 20 years. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please write them in the comments. You guys, please subscribe and follow. If you're in Utah, you can see behind me, it says the state of things, and this is going on the Utah Moms for America page. This is the kind of stuff we do. There are people who would say, This is radical or whatever else. To me, this is common sense conversations that need to be had in order to protect our country and to protect our children's future. And that is the reason why. And I'm going to continue to have these conversations with anybody who wants to have them. So I'm going to wrap us up. I think we're right exactly at an hour. So I'm going to wrap us up. And I hope you have an excellent week. And I will see you again next Tuesday. Bye.